Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Gachiakuta Season 1, Episode 5. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, it's the party being held for Rudo's introduction, and everyone's kind of enjoying it. You know, Rilo kind of suggests, like, right, it's okay that people aren't really doing it for Rudo's sake, but more just to kind of lay back and kind of let their hair down. It's like, it's okay to kind of, cut loose a little bit every once in a while. I think it's interesting that Zonka's there at the party just being kind of like, yeah. Because I think, obviously, he has a very negative opinion of Rudo because of their encounter. So a lot of that negative stain, it's like he's a rookie and kid's not really that special, I guess, even though it's like I have been put in charge of his training. But Rudo is basically beating himself up because he's like, I couldn't do anything in that fight. And him and Gris are having this conversation. Because for Rudo, it's like, it shows for him, it's like, I am still the same person I was up there. He's like, I would always be quick to lose my temper, get into fights and stuff. And Recto would always have to come to my defense and bail me out. And he's like, literally the same thing happened yesterday. Like, I haven't grown at all. Like, even coming down here, I might have survived, but I'm still that same person. I haven't changed at all. But Gris tells him, like, thank you. Because he's like, most people look down on supporters because they don't have powers. And so a lot of people are almost like, oh, you're with the cleaners, but you're just the regular people. Like, what can you do when the givers are the real muscle of the team? He even kind of suggests like other cleaners kind of look down upon the support squad. I guess meaning like other givers initially did. Who knows if that ever fully disappeared? There might still be some that kind of have that negative connotation towards the support, kind of look at them as lesser than. But for Rudo to kind of like be worried about like, yo, you came through for me. You and Rilo helped me and saved me again. You know, he doesn't look down upon them because he's like, yo, they might not have the power to kill trash beasts, but they are more useful than I am. Because Gris's perspective is you helped Folo. Folo's the guy that he helped protect. I mean, I think there's also probably part of Rudo's like, yeah, but consider my power literally like stabbed a spike right between those legs. Could have easily accidentally killed him considering I can't control my power yet. And it's an interesting thing I never really thought of too, and I think that's kind of interesting that Gris brings up the fact is Folo has the dream of like holding on to an object that's very important to him, hoping that it'll become a vital instrument and he'll awaken as a giver. And he's like, but even if he becomes a giver, he still plans on being a part of the support team because for him, it's about proving like, yeah, like one of us can do something. So I'm always going to stay the support team because I want to show like one of us was able to do it and kind of get rid of any bad taste in people's mouths, whether it's anyone that still feels that way in the cleaners or whether it's outside clientele who view support, as less than that. I thought that's interesting. Which you're immediately like, yeah, they're going to get us attached to Gris and Folo and one of them is going to die, if not both of them. They kind of give me the same energy as what's his face from Final Fantasy X. I had to look it up to remind myself. It's Luzu and Gata. No spoilers, but the story playing out the way it does, like they kind of give me Luzu and Gata energy. Not necessarily personality wise, but definitely, because I was like, if anything, like Gris would be like Luzu and Folo would be Gata, but like Folo does not have Gata's personality at all. Either way, it's just their role in the story, and as Crusaders, they play a very similar role to like the supporters do in the cleaner. So it's just kind of interesting. I think that's so fascinating that Final Fantasy X is like one of my favorite games. Might be my favorite game, especially it's my favorite amongst the Final Fantasy, but my favorite video game in general. So, and I guess it makes sense that I would pull that, but I was like, oh, it still just feels like such a weird like pull that's the reference I would go for, and for that to be the first thing immediately pop into my head, characteristically wise. And anyway, tangent and all that side. My point is like I just feel like it's not going to be if anything, it feels like because Gris seems to be the senior member, he's most likely going to die and Folo's going to live, but it could either go the other vice versa, or it could go with both of them. So, I just feel like I'm already kind of, death flags have been planted already, so, but hopefully that doesn't end up being the case. But once again, I've never read the manga, so I don't know where the story's going to go on that front, but that's just that gut feeling I get. But either way, getting back to it, Gris brought up this point to Rudo, like, basically, it doesn't, like, kind of put aside why you're here right now, what your main goal is, or what happened that led to you landing here. You're here now and you're alive. Basically focus on the thing that gave you so much passion, like the thing you cared about, kind of dreamed about before the situation, when you were just living up there as one of the tribes, without really getting into it, because once again, most people on the ground don't know like the social structure of what the spear is. But getting back to it, it's like, I am curious about that for what is going to be the thing that Rudo used to kind of ground himself. And I'm curious, is it... Because he collected a whole bunch of junk, and I don't really know... I guess it's like... He saw how wasteful people could be, and he was someone that always saw the value in stuff that the people from like the higher up side of the spear would just kind of toss stuff away. And it's like, no, this skill could be useful. There's so much stuff that's going to waste that could still be useful. So like, I'm wondering what Rudo... I guess I would assume it has to be like stuff from Recto, along with the ambitions of wanting to do more with trash, that things aren't just like disposable, like that everything kind of matters. I think a lot of that's probably going to be fundamental to Rudo, especially when you consider what his ability is to basically turn so many different objects into his vital instruments. So just something interesting to think about. But obviously Engine shows up just before, Rudo was about to cry, because I think Gris makes him immediately think of Recto, and kind of seeing everyone around, like, Folo, Gris, Engine, Zanka, and Rilo, like all of that kind of makes him feel a little sympathetic, because he's never really had that. The only people in his life he really had was Recto and Chiwa. We saw where the Chiwa thing was. She was always someone that he felt was by his side, but when the time came, turned her back on him and treated him like everyone else did. Once again, whether she really believed that about Rudo, or whether that was just a self-preservation, I'm so sorry I could not get that word out, situation, it's kind of a moot point for Rudo, but still. I think the distinction does matter, but it is still a moot point. The only person who always stayed by his side through it all was Recto, and so many of those life lessons. He was more of a father to you than your actual father. In fact, you always had a noose around your neck because of your father, so your biological father. Either way, I like when the job got called up at the beginning of the episode, well, partway into the episode, because I think that was after the code opening and the opening itself. I love that, like, Simiyu, like, it's before the phone even rings, she's got her hand doing it, because she could already tell, like, I guess, like, because of her eyes, she could kind of get a sense that the phone's about to ring. I was like, oh, I like that. But yeah, they get a new job. Oh yeah, it all ties in, so I do want to take a step back. The guy that was captured last episode, the guys who were trying to, like, sell Rudo in episode 2, it seemed like all of them are dead. It wasn't just the main guy that got captured. They all did. Poor bastard, looks like his eyes were, like, poked out. His hand seemed like it was cut off. He's like, please, I gave you enough. He's like, yep, you gave me enough information. Reached his blade, because he's like this guy's like Edward Scissorhands, has his blade in the guy's mouth and then just rips. And then just kind of like, oh yeah, he's got Rudo's description. And he's like, oh, I'm so excited to track him down. And so that ties into the job they get, where they're hired to deal for trash beasts. That basically a merchant had some merchandise that was stolen by a trash beast. This person, the cargo they were carrying was a spearite. And now it's got Rudo thinking like, wait. If there's someone else that survived, maybe I could get some answers. I think even Simiyu says like, oh, you might be able to find some answers on how to get back up. And so Rudo doesn't have control of his powers, but for him, it's like, this could be the beginning, first steps I take to getting some answers about stuff. So he decides to take the job. And Zonka's kind of almost like, oh, do we really have to drag him along? But then all Simiyu has to say like, yeah, this was going to originally go to Engine, but Engine was like, nah, Zonka's got this. He's great. And then Zonka like got lit up, his eyes lit up, and he's like, come on, guys, let's do the job. I was like, right, I let it slip my mind. We learned in episode 3, got a little hint of it. He's a major Engine simp. But to be fair, like, he talked about it like, yo, Engine's like pretty up there amongst the people, even to the point like Rio was like, yo, I left, like, I don't know what to make of that whole trash beast situation last episode with it having appears to be a vital instrument as its core. It's like, I don't really know how to handle that, so I passed the buck up to the higher grade people. So I left that up to Engine and Simio to investigate that, because I'm curious what the boss goal, and are they the most senior members? Either way, they're proceeding on their adventure, and this also plays into the whole like death flag, especially for Gris, because him and Rudo hit it off this episode. But also we found out that he has a ritual of praying to a like random item he got from a shop, because he said, yeah, putting that energy out there in the world is never a bad thing. And then all of a sudden a client appears. I was like, that's not creepy as hell. And she's like, yeah, I didn't really know who the Spirite was. They were knocked out, so I didn't have a chance to talk to him. And he's like, you want to sell the Spirite, don't you? She's like, no. Of course not. Like, I don't want to. It's just like, I want to take care of them and yada, yada, yada. And leads them to the place. But the entire time, Zonka's like, something's not right. Like, why would, like, Trash Beast would immediately attack humans going through the trouble of kidnapping them? Why would you do that? And it's like, especially hearing about everything that went down in the last request, and it's just like so much of this stuff is changing around them. What they've kind of known about Trash Beast has started to slowly change over the years. So it's like, what's going on there? And then to me, I was like, this is a trap. She's part of this, isn't it? Like, this is all about trapping Rudo, because like that opening with that other guy trying to go after Rudo and all this, I'm like, it's definitely a trap. And so when they get to the building, it ends up being a doll, and then they fall into like a mud trap, and then the woman turns into mud and disappears. Like, so we kind of have like an Earthbender meet Clayface type of situation. And so we find out about the Raiders. So this is I try to remember, did I say it in this recording? I think I was thinking about it before the recording. I don't think I said it in the recording, but back in episode 3, when we got introduced to the cleaners, I was kind of wondering, I was like, oh, are there going to be multiple cleaners? Like maybe the group Engine belongs to its one cleaners, but there's another set out there. Seems like that's not the case. It seems like they're the only cleaners. But, and I had wondered, like, oh, could there be other, like, cleaner units, like, almost like other, like, cleaner guilds almost in a way. But I guess arguably you could make that argument pseudo yes, but not really, because we get introduced to the Raiders, who are all givers, but for the most part, they're givers. So they're like the antithesis of the cleaners who help out and want to help people and take requests killing Trash Beasts, whereas the Raiders are just bandits who also have the power of givers. But over the years, they've kind of gotten more and more like heinous with some of the shit that they do. They talk about they're not here to kill Rudo or sell him. They want to learn more about the spear, because I think the guy that's after Rudo isn't the head honcho. I think he's probably like a lower ranked member. Maybe he's like a lieutenant or something like that, but he's definitely not the head honcho. So I'm curious to see what where that goes. And I brought it up last episode about Engine like happening to be in that polluted area he was in, where he ended up finding Rudo. I'm like, why were you there? Because even Simiyu was asking why you were there. And also their boss just happens to be away at this time. It's like too much coincidence. It feels like that might all be correlated in some shape or form. Definitely an Engine being in that area at the time. But I also talked about the fact is that I guess they brought up an interesting term that even Zanka was like, what? When the woman was like, they've taken an interest in Rudo because anyone that's ever fell down here has died because of the border. And Zanka was like, border? So I guess there's something in between the spear in the ground that most people who go through it have, because it's like, right, I guess most people, if there's any, because there's been plenty of Spirites thrown down here, mainly tribe folk, but I'm so curious in like, how is it that Rudo ended up surviving? Is it because of his gift or whatever? Like, what is this border that he ended up passing through? And I guess maybe this border is also the reason why no one from the ground has ever been able to manage to find their way up to the spear. Like, maybe there's like almost like this magical barrier that like maybe Rudo's in a very unique position that he's one of the few people that can actually pass through it, and no one else has been able to kind of do the inverse. But, you know, maybe anyone that falls from the spear, no one has lived long enough that, you know, either like going through the border kills them and then their corpse just falls down, or what. There's so much we don't know. That's an interesting nugget that I think keep in mind going forward in the season. Rudo escapes with the other supporters trying to like get away because like, all right, we need to find an exit. We also need to be on the lookout because there might be other raiders here. So it's Zonka versus these two. And like I brought up earlier, like she's on some like Clayface meets Earthbenders type of thing. I think you could also throw in a little bit of Gaara from Naruto too. But basically she's able to make mud clones. And considering the environment, in fact, she kind of set up stuff ahead of time to be like, yo, I can use the environment to not only like make more mud people, but I can also make it so that, which that sounds so fucked up just like on its own, because I'm like, that is a derogatory term. That's a real derogatory term, so it feels weird to use it when I'm actually am talking about literal mud people, but it's like, yeah, people made of mud. I don't know. I'll keep that in there, but it's just like, oh, that made me pause for a second. I was like, yeah, I feel like I have heard someone use like that derogatory term being used, but you know, maybe I'm conflating it with something else. Either way, one of my wild tangent there. Zonka for a minute was getting his ass handed to him. I mean, he could easily dispense of the mud beings, but the problem is that the bald guy is there landing blows. And just like Zonka's kind of getting tossed around, she's talking mad shit like, oh, like you're the only person in your rank that can defeat me. So once you're taken care of, I guess she meant specifically amongst them, because I was about to say like, I think Zonka would take an issue with that because he'd probably be like, no, there's other people in the organization that could take care of you, but I think it meant specifically of the group that's here now. You're the only one. Like once you're taken care of, I can swoop in, kill the supporters, and then snatch up Rudo, because he's the only. Well, they know Rudo's a giver, but they probably also know he doesn't have full control of his power. I mean, also from the outside, they probably don't fully know what his power is anyway, so he does have that element of surprise, but once again, he doesn't know how to properly control it. But Zonka was almost like pissed at it. It's like, yo, you're up here running your mouth, and he seems to be the intellectual type of fighter where it's like, all right, given enough time, I figured some stuff out. It's like, okay. He's like, at first, you know, you're making all this mud and stuff, and I'm thinking like, oh, this guy must be using his vital instrument to attack, but it seems like he's just a regular dude, kind of like the supporters. And so it's like, you're just hiding in the mud, because he's like, the moment like the battle started, you crouch down. He's like, I also noticed those shoes you're wearing. They're basically like almost like snowshoes to help you like with the landscape of the environment because of all the mud. So that's why you two are like the perfect main match, because he can wear those and move and hide in the mud and attack me. But then like Zonka gets in his back. He's like, yeah, but the difference is, unlike you guys, like I can beat you because I know my vital instrument in and out. Its weight, what it can do. I wake up, I talk to it every day. I know what it's capable and what I'm capable of doing, like this. And as they charge at him, he stabs the ground, kind of almost does like an echolocation thing. And then in that moment, he looks up and is like, got you. Dashes past all of them, strikes the guy hiding in the mud, and immediately like use the other end of the staff to like slam the other person, and he slides right past him because he wiped him out in an instant. It felt like one of those like classic sword moves. Like you definitely see Zoro do it, where just like you slash past somebody having drawn your blade a little bit, and you put it back into the sheath, and then like they're knocked out. Kind of had that energy about it. So pretty easily was able to dispense of them. But main guy who's after Rudo now, it's like pops up. So how Zonka handles him is going to be interesting, because we've only seen him use his weapon as a weapon. We haven't seen like what he's fully capable of as a giver. So interesting setup for next episode. Whether he's the only other raider there, we'll have to see. But I'm sure Rudo's going to go back to try and back Zonka up, because he's like, he doesn't want to feel useless. But that it'll probably also be a thing of the guy will get past Zonka and catch up with them and put Gris as well as like Folo in trouble. Maybe that will be the motivation to like, you know, kick Rudo into overdrive. Like I said, I don't want to be planning for characters' deaths. It's just a thing of the reality of it. I'm just like, I got to prepare myself for it, because you know that's why they went through the trouble of like really leaning into like him looking up to Gris and us finding out about Gris, like I said, to plant the death flags. But we'll see if it ends up being that way. Maybe it's like hey, he just ends up injured and doesn't end up dead, but it could go either way. So it's going to be interesting to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. Something really quickly, because I kept bringing up the parallels between the Givers and the Raiders. I'm curious, are there any members of the Raiders who were cleaners who kind of basically broke bad? Like maybe like the head of the Raiders used to be one, maybe someone that the head of the cleaners used to. Once again, I'm throwing a lot at wall, but it's like, just the fact is there's two separate organizations. I mean that doesn't necessarily mean anything, because it's like, like, you just don't, like, either you were cut from the cleaners, or like they just felt like you weren't the right fit, and you just find whatever means you can to learn how to survive here. So it's like, kill, still do whatever you got to survive. So maybe that's all you needed. But like, whoever went out and gathered up the people that they did, because I think it takes a very special type of sadistic to probably be part of the Raiders. So I'm curious if there's going to be like something deeper to that, Once again, it's super early in the series. I'm just throwing, stuff at the wall to see what sticks. But yeah, really, that's all I want to talk about today. Next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.